This is called Alchemy 101 Easy, a pseudo-collegiate paper / lecture draft as an art, or a love letter to my family as well as to some friends and acquaintances and to myself. First installment. This is written in response to those I love and their perplexion concerning my work. I want to share with you a big world. It is also written to those whom I do not know and also love. The following quote is from the 2006 Warner Brothers movie V for Vendetta, screenplay by Lana and Larry Wachowski, based on V for Vendetta by Alan Moore, David Lloyd, and Tony Weir. Quote, "We are told to remember the idea, not the man, because a man can fail. He can be caught, he can be killed and forgotten. But 400 years later, an idea can still change the world." End quote. Today I am writing / presenting on alchemy, and although my knowledge of this subject is incomplete, it is still something. I do believe it is something enough to begin sharing. I do not think it is wrong to say I am an alchemist. The aim of this piece is to help those unfamiliar with alchemy to look to their own predisposed point of view and see the possibility of a step, just one step away into another perspective, even if only momentarily, because to see the world as an alchemist, well, it is miraculous. I want miraculous for you. To this end, I will give you some definitions and historical background, but mainly I want to take you through the route I came and then explain my personal works, how they are similarly alchemical works. I also suggest listening to Terence McKenna's lecture, The Hermetic Corpus in Alchemy, for a nice introduction to a good portion of the practice. Along the way, I'll also be providing a bibliography complete with suggested readings and a couple video lectures you might find interesting. To even begin sincere study of this vast subject requires many lexicons and languages. I do my best as a non-academic, and it should be said that even with my unfinished education, I'm aware that gnosis is possible for those who are meant to know it, and that all those who practice and craft with their own hands, who are able to detect and differentiate within themselves the sulfur, salt, and mercury, will succeed. In modern-day shorthand, this notion might be given the acronym IYKYK, or more precisely, IYMTKYK, which translates to, if you're meant to know, you know. Some beautiful aspects of gnosis are that it is not sexist, racist, or classist. All of those who travel this way are carried by chariot, because the curious first step was the purchase of the non-refundable chariot ticket. If you are on this road, you could not be otherwise. Your own curiosity willed. Do not let it be otherwise. There are superstitions and misconceptions that accompany alchemical workings throughout historical and modern times that need to be addressed. First and foremost, turning lead into gold. Chrysopoeia, which is the transmutation of base metals into noble metals, like turning lead into gold, is not synonymous with alchemy, although the endeavor is a necessary one. This practice, described in fundamentalist and materialistic terms, divorced from the philosopher's gold, is only practiced by charlatans and those who are, as of yet, incapable of experiencing gnosis. There's a purity of intent and heart that must accompany the attainment of the philosopher's gold, which is also referred to as the spiritual gold, the tincture of gold, as well as the philosopher's stone. The riches an alchemist seeks cannot be counted. It is communion with the one and divine. This richness is singular. Look up alchemy on Wikipedia and you will find Chrysopoeia, as well as some of the following asserted aims of alchemy. Some of these are finding the Holy Grail, creating the elixir of life or immortality, aka finding the fountain of youth, creating panaceas, which are medicines that are able to cure all disease, finding Atlantis, traveling to the center of Earth, locating the inner world occupied by the wise ones, Faustian devil conjurations, soul contracts or soul selling, as well as other witchy practices. Most people think all alchemists lived hundreds of years ago and that they are all dead now. I've also read that alchemical cryptic writings are meant to hide the truth. Perversion caricatures truth. Fetishism can be an example of this. These commonly held beliefs, listed above, are examples of lies that resemble closely the truth, painting a picture that is without heart, an image that enshallows truly noble aims. These aims are made even more ridiculous by religious zealotry and poor reading, only to become 17th century fairy tale mythology that is often thought of as all metaphor and silly fantasy. Never mind that speaking in parable has been the way of sages. Never mind when a page from Grimm and Company plays out in front of your eyes as you do the laundry, or you plant the garden, or fall in love. Regarding reading and spelling, the alchemist sees dimension where the fundamentalist cannot. A fundamentalist reads symbol and word literally from a materialist point of view, whereas an alchemist knows that everything has life in and beyond the material, and so reads on multiple levels. These levels include, but are not limited to, literally, symbolically, metaphorically, spiritually, personally, and objectively. The mistake of the fundamentalist is assuming material is objective. Spiritualist's mistake is assuming it is not. Whether reading a newspaper or reading the look on a face, these multi-levels apply. This piece of writing is written in such a way. It would be helpful to read it that way as well. Spelling and gematria. This definition of gematria from the OAD works for me. Gematria is a Kabbalistic method of interpreting the Hebrew scriptures by computing the numerical value of words based on those of their constituent letters, end quote. This tradition runs through their other languages as well. Each language and tradition have their own designation of numeric value and sound. With Hebrew, though, the connection is explicit. Hebrew is thought a holy language, and numeric value is not divorced from letter. You might hear that this type of work is black magic. Well, perhaps it can be, in the same way that how you speak could be black magic. In the ancient world, literacy at its height and in the best of cities and circumstances is estimated to range between 10 to 15% of the population. If you have ever written an email, letter, or poem or story, you have spelled. Not terribly long ago, literacy was an occupation solely reserved for the noble and priestly classes. However, there is a reason the juggler does not throw bricks of lead. Grave things should not be toyed with, and this, I believe, is a truth that the superstitious should embrace, not some twisted notion of history applied to current circumstances in some anachronistic delirium. In other words, unless you are not wanting the general public to read or write, spelling is allowed, legally, morally, and socially. For goodness sake, Sudoku squares are magic squares. The people completing them, along with the crossword puzzles in the Sunday's newspaper, would be high magicians in the Middle Ages. To be clear, I hold that literacy is not sin, and more than that, it can be and has been a primary tool enabling humanity to connect to the divine. To those who speak of language as a means of patriarchal control, I simply respond that dialect is a means of rebellion, always has been and will continue to be. As a slightly honorary side note, should you be confronted by a person who tells you spelling is sinful, just ask them where they read such a thing and leave it at that. What is alchemy? Alchemy is also known as the sacred art, the spagyric art. This is a word coined by Paracelsus. The etymology breaks down into spau, which is to pull or stretch, and agero, to assemble. Alchemy is also referred to as the Hermetic arts and the great work or the magnum opus. The definition I use goes something like, alchemy is an art and mystery tradition, the aim of which is to bridge the perceived distance between pure divinity and humanity. This is accomplished through three primary means. Firstly, prayer. Secondly, augmentation of indwelling nous. And thirdly, through the gift of gnosis. Gnosis is typically defined by its etymology. It is of Greek origin and means a knowing or knowledge. By the early 1700s, it was commonly used to mean a higher knowledge of spiritual things. I use a similar definition, but more akin to revelation. That is, it reaches beyond intuition or feeling into the realm of experience. It is a crossing over into other worlds. Nous is often defined as simply mind or intellect. However, this definition is nebulous at best. Anaxagoras, circa 500 BCE, the first proponent of nous, suggested nous was the first principle and the motive cause. He claims all matter is made from spermata or seed. Nous, in its first spinnings, organized spermata by a Coriolis vortex motion, that is, by revolution. Kabbalistic nous is called kether. It is the origin. I'm now going to be quoting from The Golden Dawn by Israel Regardie. This quote I got off the line of the Llewellyn Encyclopedia. Quote, "In Kether is the divine white brilliance, the scintillation and coruscation of the divine glory, that light which lighteth the universe, that light which surpasseth the glory of the sun, and beside which the light of mortals is but darkness, and concerning which it is not fitting that we should speak more fully. And the sphere of its operation is called Rashith ha-Gilgalim, the beginning of whirling or whirls or whorls, the prima mobile or first mover, which bestoweth the gift of life in all things and filleth the whole universe. And Ehe is the name of the divine essence in Kether, and its archangel is the prince of countenances, Metatron or Metraton, he who bringeth others before the face of God. And the name of its order of angels is called Kayoth ha-Kadosh, the holy living creatures, which are also called the order of seraphim." End quote. The term causation is what you might assume. It is the cause to the effect. What most people call cause is an effect's mistaken identity. The four causes of Aristotle are efficient, material, formal, and final. Lewis Sullivan's maxim, form follows function, is to me correct. So the order of causes listed might well read efficient, material, final, and formal, if you so please. Efficient cause. Efficient cause is also called primary cause, motive cause, primum mobile, and first cause. Modern answers to the question of first cause might sound like the Big Bang, God, interdimensional plate collision. Anaxagoras answered the question with the term nous. When we look to first cause, we are asking the big question, how did it all begin? Material cause asks, what is it made of? Take, for example, a bookshelf. It has the material cause of wood, nails, screws, and paint. Formal cause. Formal cause asks, what is its shape? The answer to this seems to point to a thing's essence. Example, a chair has its chairiness. It has legs, a seat, and back. The form of a human is a particularity, even with variety. Bracket. Here maybe insert an allusion to Wittgenstein. It's what Wittgenstein would say bears a family resemblance. I think I will have to read more to make the connection or disconnection more explicit. End bracket. We humans have similar form, material, and behavior. And purpose? That is a question. Final cause. Final cause is also called teleological cause. Final cause answers the question, why? What is it good for? What is its purpose? Names of historical figures often explain their renown, or in the case of historical philosophers, it may make allusion to their philosophy. Take, for instance, Aristotle. Aristos translates to the highest or best. Telos translates to purpose or end or goal. Aristotle says the first mover, similar to Anaxagoras' nous, would create or organize everything to the best possible purpose. Anaxagoras was of a school now referred to as pre-Socratic philosophers, many of which were located in Miletus, modern-day Turkey. Prior to 500 BCE, Miletus was Greece's largest eastern city, and this city enabled the establishment of myriad satellite colonies in Egypt. Anaxagoras came from Clazomenae near Miletus, but moved to and lived in Athens for 30 years. The extant writings from pre-Socratic schools center around primary or first cause, including speculation as to what elements may be first cause, e.g. fire versus water versus air and aether, etc. Pre-Socratics also debate how this first cause moved or acted. Unlike other pre-Socratics, Anaxagoras' first cause is not elemental or material, but nous. As an introduction to the pre-Socratics, I highly recommend Nietzsche's book, Philosophy in the Tragic Age of the Greeks. It's a great book to start to learn about the pre-Socratic condition and a very nice way to come to know Nietzsche as well. Aristotle mentions in Anaxagoras that according to Anaxagoras, with all matter the opposite is included. This, as well as the ordering of things in binary opposites, i.e. water with fire, air with earth, is a legacy received by the alchemical tradition. In fact, it is a course of rote that these hierarchies and categories be explained and figures drawn showing the relationship of all matter. Then for each aspect, a category and subcategory assigned. This is the alchemical idea of solve, breaking a whole of mixed attributes down to its smallest indivisible parts and revealing their essence. We can see this in the form of a periodic table. Also, this Western Kabbalistic tree is organized by spheres and paths, then into 78 categories using Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris's Thoth Tarot deck. Let's look at this tarot deck. This tarot deck is organized into a Western Kabbalistic tree of life. This tree is meant to represent the individual as well as all the cosmos and everything in between. The shape is at once the body of one person, as well as the body of God, or the tabernacle. Kether is the highest point and is called the crown. Each of the larger spheres are called Sephira and have planetary association, whereas the paths have corresponding Hebrew letters which carry great meaning themselves. You may notice 4 cards on each Sephira representing the 4 elements: fire, water, air, and earth. This is a reflection of the elements and the 4 worlds, demonstrating the movement from creation down to our earthly experience in the lowest sphere, from first being into manifestation. So there is Salve, however, the mixture is where Anaxagoras lives. I also recommend you look at the reading I did of Anaxagoras' fragments. It is on YouTube, and I will provide the link for that here. I also recommend reading Anaxagoras and the Concept of Matter Before Aristotle by G.B. Kerford, M.A. And that's an excellent piece. It talks about exactly that. Matter, Anaxagoras and Aristotle. Anaxagoras' hand touched both Aristotle and Socrates with his nous. Socrates was disappointed after reading Anaxagoras because he thought too much emphasis was given to material cause. I like that notion that maybe the form is purpose, particularly in early creation. Socrates and Aristotle will elaborate on causes, most especially final cause. This brings me to Basil Valentine, 100 to 180 AD, and his Pleroma. The name Basil means noble and wise, and Valentine means valiant. This name became the pen name of many an author through the centuries. Pseudo-Basils are writings authored by the pen name Basil Valentine, but not related to Basil Valentine living between 100 and 180 AD. Basil is also historically thought an antidote to the basilisk or snake venom, and truly he has been this for me personally. It was his Pleroma tree that first caught my eye. I had not yet come across a node diagram with God's attributes in the way where they were diffused, the further away from God, like the transfer of heat. This was and is gorgeous to me. In Valentine's Pleroma tree, also you should know that he is often referred to as Valentinius Basilius. In his Pleroma tree, each of the circles that you will see on his tree are a coupling. So there are 2 aspects to each of those extensions of God. And I was just going to read to you real fast what those are. So it begins with the closest, nearest to God, like the tree that we looked at earlier. It starts at the very top, and that is Bythos with CJ or Anoia, which is depth or profundity, coupled with silence or idea. From that comes Nous and Aletheia, which are mind and truth. From that comes Logos, word, and Zoe, which is life. And from this, Anthropos is coupled with Ecclesia, which is man and church. Now we have the next 10 down, which is Bithios and Mixis, which is deep and commingling. Then Ageratos with Henosis, which is unaging or undecaying with union. Adophues with Hedone, which is self-existent, coupled with pleasure or bliss. Akinitos, coupled with syncrasis, which is immovable, coupled with blending. Then monogenes with Makaria, only begotten, coupled with happiness. And then the next 12 down, which is Parakletos with Pistis, which is comforter or helper, coupled with faith. Patrikos with Elpis, which is paternal, coupled with hope. Metrikos, coupled with agape, maternal, coupled with love. Ionos, coupled with synesis, which is praise or everlasting, coupled with intelligence or understanding. Ecclesiasticos and Makariotes, which is ecclesiastical, coupled with happiness or bliss. And Thelalitos, coupled with Sophia, which is willed or longed for, coupled with Sophia, which is wisdom. And then also, it should be noted, I don't see it in here, but there is a watcher in this plurimetry, and that is something that should be noted. In the Gospel of Truth, Valentine speaks of error like a force. He too speaks of human deficiency, the completeness of God, and the extension of pleroma, attributes of God, lends itself to humanity so we may be more whole. We are called by God, the one who knows our name, and we are meant to turn towards him, always toward him. I was super intrigued by the Gnostic Gospels. I first read them in my 20s, but was not able to grasp the mysteries plainly written. After encountering Valentine's plurimetry, I found Raymond Lull's tree. I went bananas for all the trees I could locate. And then I began to follow the images like they were my breadcrumbs, as if my genius had placed them in an elaborate treasure hunt, placed them before I had this body, before this dry day on the side of a lonely hill, when mountain earth is rocky and calls out the heat and drinks from the short green grasses. I have been a thief in reverse. Years before now, in other times, and other arid times, in times of great flood and turmoil, in times of sweet rest between wars, I walked quietly and laid a drawing quietly in between pages of more symbol and ink. Presents left to me, for me, saying, "This is the way, you clever girl, you beautiful, clever girl." I think how this sensation reminds me of Hegel and how he looked through all of history and tracked his Geist. I know of a thread that resembles his Geist, and can see it in the images I hunt down, like a genealogy, like fingerprints. I read the full piece of the Gospel of Truth from the Nag Hammadi library as best I could on YouTube. The link is included in the bibliography and notes, and that is attributed to Basil Valentine. Here is a small part of it that I wanted to read to you. It was a great wonder that they were in the Father without knowing him, and that they were able to leave on their own, since they were not able to contain him and know him in whom they were. For indeed, his will had not come forth from him. For he revealed it as a knowledge with which all his emanations agree, namely the knowledge of the living book, which he revealed to the aeons at last as his letters displayed to them. And these were not merely vowels nor consonants, so that one may read them and think of something void of meaning. On the contrary, they are letters which convey the truth. They are pronounced only when they are known. Each letter is a perfect truth, like a perfect book. And for they are letters written by the hand of unity, since the Father wrote them for the aeons, so that they by means of his letters might come to know the Father. While his wisdom mediates on the Logos, and since his teaching expresses it, his knowledge has been revealed. His honor is a crown upon it. Since his joy agrees with it, his glory exalted it. It has revealed his image. It has obtained his rest. His love took bodily form around it. His trust embraced it. Thus the Logos of the Father goes forth to the all, being the fruit of his heart and expression of his will. It supports the all. It chooses and also takes the form of the all, purifying it and causing it to return to the Father and to the Mother, and Jesus of the utmost sweetness. The Father opens his bosom, but his bosom is the Holy Spirit. He reveals his hidden self, which is his Son, so that through the compassion of the Father the aeons may know him, end their wearying search for the Father, and rest themselves in him, knowing that this is rest. After he had filled what was incomplete, he did away with form. The form of it is the world, that which it served. For where there is envy and strife, there is an incompleteness. But where there is unity, there is completeness. Since this incompleteness came about because they did not know the Father, so when they know the Father, incompleteness from that moment on will cease to exist. As one's ignorance disappears when he gains knowledge, and as darkness disappears when light appears, so also incompleteness is eliminated by completeness. Certainly, from that moment on, form is no longer manifest, but will be dissolved in fusion with unity. For now their works lie scattered. In time, unity will make the space complete. By means of unity, each one will understand itself. By means of knowledge, it will purify itself of diversity with a view towards unity, devouring matter within itself like fire and darkness by light, death by life. The death of form is also the creation of life. In the Kabbalistic tree of life, there is the number 80, which corresponds to the tower or blasted tower card in tarot. It runs the path number 16 between Hod, the sphere of Mercury, and Netzach, the sphere of Venus. This corresponds to the letter Pe, or mouth in Hebrew. This course runs a similar line as the veil of Perakith. The blasted tower is the ending of all values and hierarchies. For example, Moses was 80 when he was commanded to speak to the Pharaoh and demand freedom. I'm going to do that again since the beeping was happening. The blasted tower is the upending of all values and hierarchies. For example, Moses was 80 when he was commanded to speak to the Pharaoh and demand freedom. 80 is the number of revolution. And that is the end of my first installment that I have written of this. So I do want to make this a more complete text and have numerous installments. The next installment that I am working on is dealing with augmentation of indwelling nous. Basically, that goes on to explain what type of works I do, what did they look like, these different projects, going more in depth with the projects that I'm working on. So I can give you examples of how I'm attempting to grow the God inside of me, the part of God that is inside of me. How do we grow the God spark within us so that we can more clearly and broadly see? That is how it begins. So thank you very much for listening to what I had to say. All denominations of donations are welcome. Much love to you all. Please check back for new pieces from time to time. And again, thank you. Goodbye. Good night.